Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is, of course, the Arsenal News Show. Join you every morning at 8 a.m. at UK time. I hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Thank you, as always, for making this a part of your morning routines. It is very much appreciated. And yeah, I'm not putting away the beautiful away shirt because I've got something better than the beautiful away shirt, Jimbo. I've got the Real Oviedo kit with Santi Cazorla on the back. I mean, it's just far, far better than the away shirt for Arsenal this season. Way, way better indeed. Let's say good morning to those joining us in the chat box this morning. Jimbo, good morning to you, to Lars, to Phil, to James. Good morning to Morgie and Vivian and Glenn, Stephen, David, Mr. E, Carl, Lynn, Vivian, Jimbo, Olawale, Rich. Good morning, guys. We've got Marcus. Who else have we got? Stephen, Arasilki. We've got Craig. We've got Dan and Dylan, John. And I believe we've got our usuals of Manchi and Peony Weed as well. Good morning, guys. Hope you're doing good. I hope you're doing well. Thank you, everyone, for jumping into the chat. It means the absolute worlds. And StreamYard apparently is mugging people off in the chat box again. Let's actually scroll up on YouTube and see who was first. Apparently, Martin Harvey was first. Matt G, AB, Peony Weed. Was absolutely very, very quick this morning and not even rewarded. Not even rewarded. StreamYard getting rid of people. Oh, dearie me. Anyway, let's crack on with today's show. Do make sure you drop a like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Right then, let's crack on, shall we? Everton and PSV and the North London derby were all discussed in yesterday's Let's Talk Arsenal show, in which I was joined by Elliot from the Arsenal Vision podcast. If you're a fan of Elliot and his work, you'll definitely enjoy our chats. I jumped onto the Vision a couple of weeks ago to have a chat with Elliot leading into the game against Everton, and we had a good chance to kind of divulge and break down the game. So if you've not yet given that a listen, it's available on YouTube and, of course, on your audio platforms as well. So I would recommend going and checking that out at your earliest convenience. Forest drew with Burnley in last night's final Premier League game of that match week. What it means is, of course, that we can have a look at what the Premier League table looks like after every team bar Luton and Burnley have played 5 games. Unsurprisingly, both Luton and Burnley still sit at the bottom of the table. Luton with 0 points. Burnley on 1 point, along with Everton and Sheffield United. Wolves and Bournemouth in 16th and 15th, respectively, on 3 points. Then we go to what I like to describe the mid of the lower half of the table, in which we find 3 teams that all deserve to be there. Chelsea on 5 points, Manchester United on 6 points, and Newcastle United on 6 points. How funny that it is those 3 that sit in 14th, 13th, and 12th at the beginning of this season. In 11th, also on 6 points, we've got Brentford. Then we go up to the 7-pointers, Fulham, Crystal Palace, and Nottingham Forest, all on in 10th, 9th, and 8th, respectively. Then we jump up to 7th, and on 9 points is Aston Villa, West Ham United on 10, Brighton on 12, and then you find ourselves in 4th, joint 2nd with Liverpool and Spurs on 13th, and of course Manchester City, 5 wins from 5 games and on 15 points. That is what Arsenal are up against, and that completes the 5th round of games. Of course, that means that we are, I think at this point, 3 points better off in the same number of fixtures, something like that, compared to last season. Of course, the teams that we've played so far this campaign, we did beat Manchester United, but we didn't beat Everton. We did beat Fulham, but obviously 2 points off of that, and we then got the extra 3 points that we got against Everton. So, and then who was the second team? Nottingham Forest. I think it might be 1 point. I think we might be 1 point better off than we are in the same 5 fixtures. But also, if we beat Spurs in the North London derby on Sunday, it also means that we will be 1 point, I think, better off after that amount of games, after 6 games, compared to what we were last season. So we are on track for a good start to the campaign, which is encouraging. Now, in terms of the loan watch, I wanted to bring you this. We're not going to be doing this season a dedicated monthly loan watch of our players. What we're doing is kind of a weekly breakdown of everything that happened, of the players that are spending time away from the club. The Arsenal website do a fantastic breakdown, and so we're going to be using that. Basically, it's just because of time, resources, and the interest in the show as well last season. So, yeah, Lokonga played in Luton's 1-0 defeat at Fulham and played I think that the entirety of that game. Marquinhos got his first start, I believe it was for Nantes, in their win and their first win of the season over Clermont-Foot. So maybe we see Marquinhos getting more opportunities if indeed none to winning with him. Kieran Tierney played, as you can see the image on the screen, at the Santiago Bernabeu. He played 69 minutes of Real Sociedad's 2-1 defeat. Real Sociedad did take the lead in that game before eventually succumbing to what is Los Blancos' very consistent start, and they go top of La Liga. Charlie Patino played 82 minutes of Swansea's 2-0 defeat against Cardiff in the Wales derby. Swansea aren't having a very good start to the season. They're now 22nd in the table, and Alex Runnison was an unused substitute on the Cardiff bench for this game. Millwall were beaten 3-0 at home by Leeds, and Brooke Norton-Cuffy played the full 90 minutes. I don't know if you guys have seen the viral video that has come out from that Leeds-Millwall game of the Millwall fan getting rather exciting, jumping about a bit. You've probably seen it across your timelines. If you haven't, I certainly recommend trying to find it. In Sky Bet League One, Omar Rekic played 78 minutes of Wigan's 2-1 win against Cambridge. We saw Nathan Butler-Oyedeji come on as a 78th minute substitute. At Cheltenham Town, they lost 1-0 against Exeter. Sadly, Butler-Oyedeji could not get a goal playing up top for them. Billy Vigar featured in Eastbourne Borough's 1-0 defeat at home to Worthing in their Emirates FA Cup second qualifying round game. And in the FA WPL Premier League South, Ruby Doe scored her first goal for Ipswich Town in Sunday's 5-0 win at home to London Bees, so having hit the crossbar earlier in the game. So congrats to Ruby on scoring there. Elsewhere, and going through the rest of the women's sides, in the Women's Championship, Araya Dennis came on at halftime for Crystal Palace during Sunday's 1-1 draw with Sunderland. And Watford's, who are down in 8th following their 1-0 loss at Blackburn Rovers on Sunday, Katie Reid and Layla Harriott both played 90 minutes, and Freya Godfrey came on with 75th minute for Charlton, which the missus will be very happy about, as they beat Birmingham City 1-0 to go 6th in the Championship. Very good indeed. Players who weren't involved in any of the games were Michelle Ajiman for Watford Women, Tyrese John Jules for Derby, Mika Beereth for Motherwell, Salah Eddin Ulad Umhand for FC Den Bosch, and Alex Kirk and Kiddo Taylor Hart for Bromley didn't play. So there you go. And Nuno Tavares, of course, did play, as you saw in that image, in the 1-1 draw of Nottingham Forest and Burnley. Arsenal completed their photo call with Win the Dog. Mikel Arteta seen here with the Community Shield. I don't know which is a better trophy. I think I'd rather have Win the Dog than Community Shield. Certainly has had a greater impact, I think. And certainly we've seen Win the Dog have, I think, a positive impact. I've still sadly not met Win. Hopefully that changes. I'm going to be at the training ground a little bit later on today. I'm going to be at the press conference at London Colney a little bit later on this afternoon. So hopefully, maybe, stars will align and I can meet Win the Dog. But until then, I will keep praying, keeping those fingers crossed that I get the opportunity to do so. Apparently, according to Sammy Motbell, in the wake of David Raya's start against Everton, clubs are now targeting Aaron Ramsdale. We don't know which clubs in particular, really, but there are a number of clubs that are keeping an eye on the situation. Of course, this was always going to happen. This was always going to take place, and we always knew that Ramsdale was going to be in a position where, when he was dropped, stories about his future would emerge, and it's taken 24 hours, it seems, or just over that, 24 hours for these stories to work. So yeah, it's frustrating. I'm sure that there are clubs monitoring Ramsdale, but to be honest, I'm sure that there were clubs always monitoring Ramsdale. So I wouldn't lean too much into this. I wouldn't get too concerned about this. Mikel Arteta says very strongly that it's a situation whereby they are, using Ramsdale and Raya together. So it's not surprising clubs are looking at him. I always think that Liverpool might be a very interesting club to watch out for regarding Ramsdale, because Alisson isn't getting any younger and they're going to want a top goalkeeper, and you never know, they might end up going for Ramsdale. So that would be my tip for people, is to watch out for Liverpool. Now, with it being this week and it being Tuesday, it does mean that the Champions League is back. The Champions League has returned, and not only that, but Arsenal are involved. They take their place in the competition tomorrow against PSV. But there are a number of games taking place today, which you need to know about, because, of course, this affects Arsenal. Milan take on Newcastle at the San Siro. And an interesting story came out last night saying that Newcastle have broken UEFA regulations already. They left too late from Newcastle to travel over to Milan. I'm not sure what the ramifications of that will be, but I did see a story yesterday suggesting that would happen. That's one of the early games. That's 5:45 this evening, so you'll be able to watch that one early. The other early game at 5:45 p.m. UK time is Young Boys against RB Leipzig in Group F and Group G, respectively. The other Group F game in Newcastle's group is Paris Saint-Germain against Borussia Dortmund. That's one of the 8 p.m. kickoffs UK time. Alongside that, in Group E, Lazio take on Atletico Madrid. The other game in Group E is Feyenoord against Celtic. Group H sees Barcelona face Antwerp and Shakhtar Donetsk play FC Porto. And then the other game in Group G, which obviously follows on from the Young Boys Leipzig game, is Manchester City against Crvena Zvezda, also known as Red Star Belgrade. So some really interesting games tonight. I think the one to watch, obviously, Milan Newcastle, the early kickoff, and then of the later games, Paris Saint-Germain against Dortmund and Lazio, Atletico Madrid. Some very exciting games. I can't wait to get going in Arsenal's Champions League campaign. And as I mentioned, I did say that I will be at the training ground a little bit later on for the open training session, which is a part of UEFA protocol. We did it last season. I was at the training ground a lot last season for the Europa League open training sessions and press conferences. There'll be an opportunity to hear from Mikel Arteta and an opportunity to see if Gabriel Martinelli is indeed present at training. I will be there, of course, for Football.London, of which you'll see me with the microphone doing a little bit of video work as well. I'll also be in the press conference and putting some questions towards the manager as well. So I'm going to get my thinking cap on for what is going to be asked. Don't tweet me telling me what to ask him. But yeah, it's certainly excited to get down. It's the first time in quite a while. I haven't been to London Colney in quite some time. I think it was like March time that it was the last time that I was there. So very, very excited indeed to get down there and get an update on Gabriel Martinelli's situation and fitness. And we'll know that a little bit later on today in a little bit more detail. Right. Let's go to part 2 and your questions right after this. Right then, DJ says Tonali versus Milan. Wow, yeah. I mean, he is having a swift return to San Siro. Be interesting to see what kind of reception he gets after he chose to move to Newcastle. It's going to be a very intriguing game. Tyrell says Newcastle game tonight looks good against Milan. Yeah, very interesting to see how Newcastle get on in their opening Champions League game. Roger says keep Aaron. His attitude is great and he's got years left to go. So I do agree. I do think Arsenal should try and keep hold of both goalkeepers for as long as feasibly possible. But I suppose it is the trickiest position to try and manage two competitive players. And I don't know what the expectation can be from a manager of how long he can expect to keep hold of two goalkeepers that are in a position whereby the minutes are not guaranteed. So that will be very, very interesting. Lewis says, Tom, can you ask what diet when the dog is on and what he thinks of the training ground? As in what when the dog thinks of the training ground? Yeah, sure. I will give it my best woof and try my best, Louis, for you. Selinga says, is there a chance that our young loaned players like Patino and Marquinhos can get into the first team next season? There's always a percentage chance. Of course, I just don't think it's very likely. Patino has got the issue right now, sadly, where you've spent £105 million on Declan Rice. You know, yes, we might be moving on Thomas Partey, but I do feel like they'll want to replace Thomas Partey, if indeed he does move on, with a more established first team regular player. And I'm not sure that Charlie Patino will fit into that mold. He's only got 1 year left on his deal when he returns in the summer. I think Arsenal will try to be maximising the fee that they can get from him. Marquinhos is an interesting one. He's obviously one of the only natural right wingers that we have. Most of the players that we have in the forward line are either on the left or through the middle. Only Saka is a naturally right-sided player. Nelson can play there. Fabio Vieira can play there, but not necessarily to the best of their abilities. I look at Vieira as obviously more of an attacking midfielder. Nelson more of a left-sided player. So yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens with Marquinhos, but I just can't see it happening for either of those two players, to be honest. Dan says, will you be arranging for the Champions League music to be played over the opening credits tomorrow? We demand it. If it wasn't for copyright, I might. But yeah, sadly, I can't because of copyright. But if you may demand it, what you can do, if you like, is get the Champions League music up on your phone and then just press play when the show starts at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. That would be my advice if you guys want to do that. Martin says, appreciate being credited with the first comment today, but I wasn't. I was about fourth. Peenie Ween was actually first. Well, that means even YouTube is mugging him off because it says on YouTube that you were first. So there you go, Martin. Even YouTube can't be as quick as Peenie Ween, it seems. Walk says Smith Rowe needs to play tomorrow, surely. I do worry about his playing time. I do tend to agree. I do think we have to find some way of getting Smith Rowe some minutes, and tomorrow seems to be a good opportunity to do that. I really feel as though Smith Rowe is in a situation. We talked about this yesterday with Elliot. Like, if he doesn't get enough minutes, he has to go. Like, he has to move on because you can't. Elliot said the point, and I agree with this, is that we are weaker with Smith Rowe in the squad as opposed to having a player that Arteta trusts and will use. That's not to say he doesn't trust Smith Rowe, but just a player that he will use and that he sees having an impact on games and he's willing to use in the first full game. So, for instance, if you had another Fabio Vieira, because he's clearly willing to use Fabio Vieira, we'd be in a stronger position technically because, you know, Arsenal would have a player that the manager wants to use. And at the moment, he doesn't seemingly want to use Smith Rowe. And you might say that, you know, there's not been an opportunity, but I feel like there has been opportunities as well. So, yeah, I should sing it instead, the Champions League theme. Yeah, I don't see that happening. I haven't got like a terrible voice. It's just terrible. But I wouldn't allow anyone to endure that, to be honest. No one needs to hear me sing. Nick says, everyone thinks keepers are entitled to a starting spot, but everyone else has to fight for it. Arteta wants to change this and fully utilise all 11 players, depending on the game, like you would a central midfielder. I am very interested to see how this goalkeeper substitution line from Arteta in his press conference evolves. Will we see a goalkeeper substituted in a game, depending upon if the game state suits it? Elliot made the point yesterday, and I won't go into it too much because I'd like you to listen back to it if you haven't already, around what attributes does Ramsdale have that are superior to Raya? He came up with just one, and I don't think it's too harsh of a assessment of Ramsdale. This isn't to say that Ramsdale's not good enough. Ramsdale's a very good goalkeeper. It's just that Raya has a lot of abilities that are even better. So that's what makes it so difficult to try and think when you would swap them for the characteristics of a game. So, yeah, let's wait and see. Fuad says, long-term, Tom, I don't see how Ramsdale will accept playing in cup competitions. No, I absolutely agree. Alex says, Tom, I'm genuinely worried about the North London derby. I feel like we know how they'll play. Now they've lost Kane. They are an unknown entity. I'm not sure that they necessarily are, Alex, an unknown entity. Yes, of course, they've done well at the start of this season. Yes, I quite like Ange Postecoglou as a coach. I've tried to remove the Spurs element of him. It's easy to hate Conte. It's easy to hate Jose Mourinho. It's easy to dislike some of their former coaches like Poch even. But I quite like Ange Postecoglou. I like his attitude. I like his approach to press conferences as a journalist. I'm kind of looking at it from that perspective as well. I quite like his approach to those. He's warm. He's entertaining. He's good with his answers. He almost sounds like a fan being a manager, which is not to undermine him because he's very, very good. Clearly, he's a very good coach. And I was always told by people who are from Australia that listen to the channel that we should be concerned about Ange because he's been, one of the best things to come out of that country in regards to football that they've ever produced, I think. So certainly, I think that there is something we can say about the way that they play. What they do like to have is the ball. Whereas Spurs of old used to be amazing on the counter-attack. And that's not to say that they're not still amazing on the counter-attack. They are good. But I think the best things that they've done this season has come from them being in possession. Now, Arsenal will be expected to dominate the ball on Sunday. And it's going to be how Spurs are out of possession and will their defence hold up to scrutiny as much, maybe more so than they've ever been tested so far this season. So if Arsenal can dominate the ball as they have done in every single game they've played so far this year, then that might be the undoing of Spurs. And it might be that their lack of rigidity, solidness outside of possession is actually what ends up being their undoing. So let's wait and see what happens. But I'm excited and nervous. It's my least favourite game of the season. I say this every year. I hate the North London derby. I'm always excited for it, but there's just so much pressure on it. There's so much riding on it. There's so many bragging rights. I've got so many Spurs supporting friends around me that I just cannot deal with us not getting a result, and I mean a win when I say a result. So yeah, let's wait and see. Vala says, if Smith Rowe were to leave, what would you miss the most about his presence at the club? For me, it'd be the Saka and Smith Rowe chant, and the fact that I can shout, "Come on, Smith Rowe goal" when he comes on as a sub. I think that's quite telling, Vala. I mean, if Ødegaard was to leave, the thing I would miss the most is contributions in terms of his goal scoring and his technical ability. If Jesus was to leave, the thing I would miss most again is his technical ability, his hold up, his link up play, his ability to dribble past 3, 4, 5, 6 players. If Saliba was to leave, I would miss his speed, his recovery, his ability to challenge, his composure at the back. And if Smith Rowe is to leave, and the thing we miss most is a chant, maybe that's a bit telling. If that was not what you were intending by your question, and it was just kind of what would I miss outside of him as a footballer, then of course the chant is great. I miss it. I think he's a good kid. I think he's good to talk to, but there is something to be said about what we would miss. Would this team, would this squad miss Smith Rowe? The moment the answer is probably not. We haven't missed him so far, and that's not a criticism. It's just the truth. We haven't, because we've not used him. Would he have changed the Fulham game? Maybe, but I don't necessarily think so. I think that was more to do with the defending from a corner and the mistake we made for the first goal. Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to say what we would miss right now. I think that with Vieira being as good as he is, we have got a lot of attacking subs. We've got Jesus at the moment on the bench. We've got Vieira coming off the bench. We've got Havertz coming off the bench sometimes, like the last game. We've got Reece Nelson, as I've mentioned before. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone. Trossard, of course, who come off the bench. Oh, hold on. Do we have? Yeah. Be back. Should be back. Okay, there we go. That was quick. That should be back and fixed. So basically, just to give you an update on the audio situation, I had a technician come round, or supposed to come round on Friday, couldn't because they are ill. Came round yesterday as I was podding with Elliot. I was actually on my backup laptop yesterday, and it might be that I use the backup laptop in future, but it's just a terrible laptop, so it's not the best. Its backspace doesn't work, but I may have to use the missus laptop, to be fair. There wasn't an issue, and there hasn't been an issue over the weekend. And I thought maybe because I did a diagnostic check and the USB status was actually passed, it was fine. So it's frustrating that these issues are continuing, but the laptop is going to get sent away. The only reason it couldn't get fixed yesterday is because there's a little screw in the back of the laptop that wouldn't undo. So they couldn't actually do anything about it on site. So I'm going to have to send the laptop away. But we will have a backup laptop for the short term. But for now, it had been fine. This is the first time we've had an issue with it. So I'm not sure why. But yeah, there we go. I literally have to give you an update about the mic situation. Yes, that is it, because hopefully it gets fixed soon. It's a USB problem. There's been a USB failure, and that's an issue with the motherboard, sadly. So that's the problem. It's nothing to do with sound cards or anything like that. It's the USBs internally that are an issue, and it's all of them. And it's not the microphone, because I've used different microphones, so we know it's definitely the laptop. We will be wrapping up fairly soon, considering that issue, hoping it doesn't happen again. Nick says, let's do a fundraiser to get Tom a new laptop. Trust me, you guys support the channel an incredible amount. We've in fact just had a brand new member sign up to the channel. Jalali, thank you so much for becoming a new member. You don't need to start a GoFundMe. You guys do very, very well in terms of your support to the channel, and whatever's invested by you guys, be it the members, be it your super chats, things like that, it goes back into the channel, whether it's making things like this, whether it's improving the infrastructure, and whether it's having to buy a new laptop. So, yeah, thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Derek says, Tom, great to see Timber photographed yesterday and looking and moving freely. Also nervous, but if we win, we will be better off if we win on Sunday from last year and still not flying, technically. Good sign. We'll be there tomorrow, and I'm absolutely buzzing for it. Yeah, me too. I'm looking for it. As I said before, I am going to be around the stadium on Wednesday night before the game, with this microphone. So if you see me outside the Armory, probably around 2 hours before kickoff, doing some pre-video, and you're around, I might do some fan interviews and stuff like that for Football.London. So make sure you check that one out. Let's go to a couple more, and then we'll wrap things up. Alan says, Tom, why do you think our defense has to resign to falling down holding their faces. As an ex-referee, it did annoy me quite considerably. I think this is relating, Alan, to the William Saliba moment. I think it's part of football, sadly, Alan. There isn't a club on earth that doesn't do it. And I think when a defender is hit and knows they're beaten, there's something what they do is they can go down holding their faces because they know that if it's a head injury, the referee usually has to stop the game. And so it is absolutely a tactic of lots of players. It's not just Arsenal, but I've got to be magnanimous and honest about it. That's how I feel in moments, is that if a defender sometimes thinks he's beaten and he feels like a clip, be it on his face or even just near his face, we've seen them time and time again go down holding their face. So, yeah, it's a difficult one. Darren says, given Martinelli may miss the North London derby, who would be the better left-wing option to get the Spurs defence? I'd go for Nelson. Interesting. It'd be interesting to see what Nelson does on Wednesday, so I'm going to hold my judgment. Let me wait and see what Nelson does. But Trossard did really, really well at Everton, so he's very different. I think Nelson's much more similar to Martinelli than Trossard is, but I think both are good options for us, and Nelson has impressed me in the little cameos that we've seen him. So let's wait and see who we end up choosing to play in that game. Anyway, we are going to wrap things up there. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. There's over 900 of you tuning in this morning, which is amazing. Thank you so much to everyone that continues to do so. It means the absolute world. If you could drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, I will certainly be very grateful for that. Thank you to everyone that is continuing to show the channel support. It means everything. I'll be back a little bit later on this morning on the Arsenal way. I'll then be heading to London Colney. So make sure you look out across my social feeds, and of course have a look on the football.london website for all the latest updates regarding open training and the press conference as well. Lots to come. Enjoy yourselves. Have a great day. Stay safe, stay well, and as always, up the Arsenal.